Strange, but true stories. Tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. Time. There is the actual tick-tock of the clock, steady, metronomic. And then there is the perception of time, varying in what you may be doing at the moment, right? A nice sunny day at the beach with the ones you love zips by in an instant, while that work meeting that you have to sit through seems to drag on for days. But for the following people, the tick-tock and the perception got out of whack with reality and found themselves in some very strange situations. The fog. It was 2005, and I was in the Army at the time. One of the other guys and I had decided that we would come into work on Saturday morning for a few hours and do some preparation for a rain shoot that was taking place the following Sunday for a platoon of Army reservists. We agreed to meet at 0800 at the unit compound where we both worked and be finished by around 10, giving us plenty of time to enjoy the rest of our Saturday. I woke up the next morning at 0630, same as I always did during the working week, went through my usual morning routine and left my house at 0730 on the dot. It was only a 15 to 20 minute drive from my house to the base, mostly on quiet country roads before reaching a small town where the base was located. About 10 minutes into my drive, I saw a very thick fog engulfing the road ahead of me. It wasn't uncommon to see fog in the morning, but I was surprised at how dense this fog was. I had to slow down to what felt like a crawl as I drove through it, and my visibility was restricted to only a few meters in front of my bumper. After what felt like maybe a minute, I emerged out the other side and returned to normal speed, but suddenly became aware that it looked, and even felt, like much later in the morning. The sun was now high in the sky, and the day much brighter than it had been only a couple of minutes before. I took a quick look at my watch. It read 0745. There was a cafe on the way that had these really delicious bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast burgers, and I was a little hungry. I had enough time to stop, grab one and a coffee, and still make it to the base by 0800. I stopped, got out of the car, and walked into the cafe. Now, the first thing I noticed was the counter was empty. They usually had ready-made hot breakfast items there. I approached the girl at the counter and asked where everything was. She replied, "We stopped serving breakfast menu at 10:30. 10:30? But it's not. Confused, I looked at my watch again. It read 0750. But it's only, I stuttered when I saw the large clock on the wall behind her. It read 10:50. I looked at my watch again, then back at the clock. Sorry, but is your clock telling the right time? She turned and looked at the clock, then back at me and said, yes. Mind if I see what your watch reads? I'm sure that isn't the right time. She held out her arm so I could see it, and it read the same as the clock on the wall. Wow. Okay, thank you, I said and walked out of the cafe without buying anything, and I got back into my car. I was in somewhat of a daze. I mean, my watch and the clock in my car were both telling me it was still early in the morning. Yet, it certainly didn't look like it outside, and both the clock on the wall in the cafe and the girl's watch said it was nearly 11. I started the car and continued into town to the base, all the while going through possible scenarios in my head about what was going on. I knew I hadn't slept in, and it wasn't possible my alarm, my watch, and the clock in my car were all 3 hours behind. As I pulled into the parking lot at work, I saw my friend standing next to his car smoking a cigarette. He gave me a foul look and was holding his arms up in the air as if to say, "Where the hell have you been?" I got out of the car and greeted him nervously. "Hey man, how's it going?" "You're a bit late, aren't you?" he said. "Thought we were meeting here at 8 o'clock. "Yeah, I know, and I couldn't think of what to tell him. "I'm sorry, something must have gone wrong with..." I looked down at my watch. It had just gone past 0800. I tried to explain what had happened, I even showed him my watch and the clock in the car. He didn't look all that convinced. And neither was I, to be honest. How had I lost 3 hours of my day with no explanation? "Well, whatever, man. I've done all the prep work for tomorrow," he said. "I've got to take off. I'm late. I was supposed to meet up with Amy half an hour ago." He was quite annoyed, I could tell. He got in his car, and as he drove past me, he rolled down his window. "You owe me one." I gave him a smile and a nod and watched him drive off. Feeling embarrassed and confused, I sat back in my car and again contemplated all the events from when I first woke up until now. I began to feel as though that fog had something to do with it. When I came out the other side, 3 hours of my life had either disappeared or I had somehow gone forward in time. Years later, after I got married, I told my wife about my experience. She, being quite spiritual, was quite open to the idea. I may have entered some type of time portal or a glitch in time. My friend, on the other hand, who I'm still friends with to this day, is still waiting for the day I finally tell him what really happened. Time shift on aisle 2. It was a Friday afternoon, and 5 of my friends and I went into the town center after school to have some fun and eat dinner. This was in Reading, Berkshire in the UK. I was 16 at the time. We had a good time together, and then after dinner started to make our way back to the bus stop to head home. The quickest way to get back to the bus stop was to cut through a big department store. 2 of my friends, Molly and Catherine, are fast walkers and walked off slightly ahead, but were always in sight as it's a direct route through the store. I was walking with my friend Danny just ahead of the other 2. The 2 lagging behind us decided to detour to the sweets aisle to grab some stuff to eat on the way home. Danny and I continued towards the exit, with Molly and Catherine still in sight ahead of us. We looked through the windows and could see a bus pulling away from the bus stop. We would hopefully be on the next one. We continued to follow them to wait outside for our other 2 friends. Molly and Catherine were about 20 feet ahead of us and walked through the exit. As they did, the shop's alarm went off. Danny turns to me and makes a joke about our friends being thieves and setting off the alarm. Almost immediately behind them, a couple followed carrying large shopping bags, and I said that if anyone had stolen anything, it was probably them. We proceeded through the exit as well, but when we stepped outside and looked around for our friends, they were nowhere to be seen. The couple that had the large shopping bags were not there either. We had just been a few steps behind them, and only a few seconds had passed. Neither of them could have moved that fast. At first, I wondered if they had gone straight for the bus stop, but there is only a large open space in front of the shop. There was nowhere they could have gone. They couldn't even be playing a joke on us because it's not as if there was a sharp corner that they could duck behind. Eerily, there wasn't anybody outside the shop, or for that matter, anywhere at all. We couldn't see a single person. There was no trace of the bus we just saw go past the shop window before we stepped out either, and the road stretched out a long way ahead of us, so the bus couldn't have cleared it yet. Everything was deserted. Danny and I were both shocked and scared. We were muttering to one another about how certain we were they had left in front of us, and how creepy this all was. We spun around and quickly went back into the shop. I was almost surprised to see people in the shop, as at that point I half expected to find that deserted too. When we've discussed it since, we can both agree that the buildings looked slightly different than usual as well. Me and Danny stood just inside by the door, completely freaked out for several seconds when Molly and Catherine and the others came round a corner out of an aisle. They had shopping bags and asked where we'd been. Where had we been? Where had they gone? I was still so confused as to how they'd apparently left the shop, disappeared, and then reappeared back inside the shop. I asked them how they managed to leave the shop ahead of us and then end up behind us. They said they hadn't left the shop, but had followed our other 2 friends to get cookies and sweets. Danny and I explained that we were certain it was them that had set off the store alarm. They looked at us strangely and said they had not heard the store alarm. It was a very loud alarm and impossible for anyone in that half of the store to not hear it. They all disregarded us, but to this day, Danny and I remain friends, and we still recall everything identically. I don't think I'll ever have an explanation. I just find it so weird that we could have mistaken other people for our friends and then exit the store and then see no one at all. Danny and I have had other weird things happen to us when we've been together, but they're whole other stories in themselves. This has been another strange but true stories. So, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you have had a strange occurrence happen to you that you can't quite explain and would like to share it, send us your story to strangebuttruestories2@gmail.com. Subscribe if you haven't already. Sign up for notifications to know when the next video drops to the channel. Visit our website. And we started offering merch recently. Check out teespring.com and search for Strange But True. Thanks for watching this video. I'm Steve White. Until next time.